I've found that I've had quite steady growth. A couple of times it's gone quicker, and then again it kind of flattens out a little bit. And the best way to describe it, I'm actually very lucky that I have a Google account manager at the moment, somebody who's like encouraging and mentoring me in my YouTube channel. Very blessed to have that. And they reminded me that actually you probably want the slow and steady growth, because you're actually getting people who have subscribed to your channel not through a viral hit, but because they like your content consistently. And in some way they'll probably more likely to come back. They'll remember you because they're showing up in slow and steady groups.
Hello there. Welcome to another edition of the Videocraft Show presented by Video Husky. I am your host, John Santiago, and each week, in case you're new around here, I interview content creators about their stories, strategies, and experiences of building an audience through video. And this week, I had the pleasure of speaking with Jennifer Kempson. Now, Jennifer is an award-winning financial vlogger from Glasgow, Scotland, better known as MamaFurFur. On her YouTube channel, she teaches viewers how to grow their wealth through money management, investing, side hustles, and entrepreneurship. In the beginning of the 2010s, Jennifer and her husband sat in 5 figures worth of consumer debt, about 24,000 pounds to be exact. But by becoming financially literate through research and education, they were able to pay everything off in just 3 years. With a desire to help others, Jennifer decided to create content around sharing what she learned about personal finance. And in just under 2 years, she managed to build a multi-6-figure business with a variety of income streams as a YouTube creator. And in this conversation, we do talk about the business side of being a YouTube creator for her. We talk about those different income streams that she has. We talk about how she goes about pricing different products that she creates and sells to her audience, and the importance of making sure that those products deliver value. So we talk about that. We talk also about her story of how she got started in YouTube and why she decided to go that route, what her process looks like in terms of creating videos on her channel. All of that and more in this episode of the Videocraft Show. But before we jump into the interview, I want to remind all of you, in case you are new around here, that you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the notification bell. You can also subscribe to our podcast wherever it is that you get your podcasts, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher. We're on all the major podcasting platforms. And feel free to leave a comment too. I always love hearing from people about what you're going through in your journey, as well as your feedback on the show. That's how we improve. So without further ado, let's go ahead and toss it to my conversation with Jennifer Kempson, aka MamaFurFur. Jennifer Kempson, thank you for joining me on the Videocraft Show presented by Video Husky. It is a pleasure to have you on all the way across the pond.
Yes, all the way from Glasgow, Scotland. Thank you for having me. This is exciting.
No, this is exciting for me. I love getting, we have this podcast. We always enjoy getting a chance to talk to creators like you. And I'm especially, I've got so many things that I want to talk to you about, but I'm especially excited to talk to you about just the business element of everything that you're doing as MamaFurFur. But before we get into that, there's many other things that I want to jump into. And I first do really want to start with that name. I read in an article that is a nickname you were given, Furfur, when you were in your first job working in a clothing store.
That's right.
Could you go deeper into that story as to how you got that nickname? Yeah.
Sure. Well, thank you for also finding out where it came from. You're the first person ever to have known the little story about it. So when I worked in a clothes shop when I was 16, first job, there was 2 Jennifers. So Jennifer was quite a popular name when I was born in the 80s. So there was obviously multiple Jennifers at the time, and they called me Furfur just to pick me out from the other Jennifer. And then I started a blog about 10 or 9 years ago. And so it was part of being in motherhood. I just had a baby. And so the name MamaFurFur kind of tied in. And it was a name actually my stepchildren wanted to call me. So it felt like it was quite holistic for life. And off the back of that, when I started making content properly 3 years ago, the name was there because of the blog, and my channel name had been set up with it. And I thought, do you know what? I'll just stick with it. So people actually search for MamaFurFur rather than my own name, which is excellent. It sticks in your mind, so that's all good.
Yeah, I did not actually realize that yes, FurFur is basically the end of your name.
Yeah, exactly.
Jennifer. That makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, Jennifer is a very common name, so it's a great nickname to have. And you know that it's great that you bring up the the blogging element of your journey as a creator, because that is another thing that I wanted to talk to you about. Starting your creator journey essentially as a blogger, what made you gravitate to wanting or being open to sharing your stories, your experiences through a blog?
So for me, I love talking to people. I love people in general. My career, when I was in the corporate world, was in sales management. So I've managed big global customers, always developing relationships. And I just loved sharing life, because we all have such varied experiences. And I just loved the thought of just talking to somebody, anybody, about, what I was learning about being a mum, a first-time mum, and then it naturally migrated on to about money management. We might touch upon that, how I actually got started, why money was so important. And I just loved that somebody around the world could maybe find me randomly, and they could feel like they've got somebody else going through what they had experienced, and a kind of a hand of hope to say, okay, I went through it, and then here's what you can do now I've learned as well.
How did you grow that blog initially and reach audiences? Was it mainly through SEO in the beginning?
Yes, and also Pinterest I was using, and just genuine building up of relationships, building up with other content creators using Twitter and Facebook at the time, because it was kind of motherhood more than that I was focusing on then before money. It was just talking to other people. What were they doing? Could I be part of conversations? And so it was very just organic. I was open to however I would be found on Google or on Pinterest and things like that. Great.
You mentioned you started that about, what was it, almost a decade ago?
Yeah, nearly. I know. I'm still young. It's fine.
Exactly. You are still young. But the internet has just been around for such a long time at this point. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy to think that, something like that, like a blog, has just been around for that long. You started on YouTube 2017 or so? Is that
2018? So 3 years ago in March, properly making videos. I've made a couple of videos in 2016, but I didn't really seriously do it. It was about motherhood and things like that, and it wasn't till March 2018 where I properly started putting out a video every single week.
So tell me about the early days, though, before you started doing it properly in 2018, when you were essentially dabbling around with YouTube in 2016. What was the approach there? Was it just more like a curiosity of just saying, all right, I've got this blog, I've started it, I'm growing an audience there, but hey, YouTube is a very popular platform. Maybe I should try it out. But what was that like in those early days?
Do you know, it was just more about it looked really good fun. Genuinely, I was watching more and more YouTube. I had my second child in 2016, and I found myself watching other mothers in the UK and, globally, some of the things they were sharing, and it looked so much fun. And I thought, that part of you that goes, I could do that. I could actually talk to people and make videos. And that's all I did. Was I just, again, in the same way as a blog, I'm a very visual person. So for me, it was so much easier to talk to somebody than it was to sit down and plan and write. So I literally, again, just picked up the camera and thought, why not? And as I say, it just looked so much fun, and I thought I could do it.
And in that time, like you mentioned, you were kind of experimenting with different ideas. I know I did a little deep dive into some of those first videos that you had. Yes. Again, you had some videos on exploring the concept of motherhood, but then at the same time, I saw some of your earlier videos. There were some videos on productivity, books you've read. So tell me about the decision to kind of niche down essentially into like money management.
So what happened in our life was actually we had debt. So my husband had £24,000 worth of consumer debt, and during this time of actually starting to make videos and experimenting, we were learning how to manage and pay off debt. And it was really one night I can remember sitting in front of a spreadsheet and going, I had no choice but to go back to work. I've just had my second child, and I felt that I was stuck with money. And from growing up with money never being an issue really, I would always live cash only, to then feel like two people had to work full time and there was no option to be with our family. I was just like, right, there's got to be a better way. And from the couple of months before I started to focus on money, I then, as you say, deep dived. I really was immersing myself on, okay, how do people actually manage money? How do people, get out of debt? What's smart? What are the billionaires doing that I'm not doing around things? And that natural journey, devouring every single blog, every single video, every single book I could find on money and investing in businesses, then led me to realise that nobody was talking about these things really in the UK. Like back 3 years ago, it was very centric on a lot of US money creators. I wasn't even thinking about if they were male or female or anything. It just seemed to be a lot of male US voices. And so again, in a similar way, I thought, I really enjoy talking about money. I really want to start those conversations in the UK. And what if there's somebody else who was like me, who was struggling? So I'm going to teach them everything I'm learning about so that I can help them. That just in the same way, I'm 2 steps ahead. Can I help? Can I help you? And we'll figure this out together.
Was it difficult at all to maybe pick that niche? I mean, aside from being, having it, really enjoying and learning about money management, again, you had early success. The reason I asked this is because you had success with blogging about motherhood. I mean, I imagine obviously being a mom yourself, that's a fun topic for you to discuss. So was there any thought of like, maybe I do want to do money management, but at the same time, I do gravitate to, I've had success here in the motherhood niche. Maybe I want to do that too, or?
Honestly, I can remember one night just saying, I want to talk about money. And it was like a light bulb came on. And I don't think any decisions I've ever made with my business have been because of success based. It's always been what am I actually passionate about? And money, as you well know, is a huge trigger for people. There's only 2 conversations you can't have with people: politics or money. And I love the fact that I have those conversations with people, and I love speaking about money. I also love challenging people around money because there's so many mindsets that lead people to think that life's constructed a certain way. And I think money mindset is one of those beautiful topics that if I can help you change and see a bit more of actually it's a resource to use in your life and shape it, then you'll see the ripple effect. It's kind of like a Trojan horse. I'll change your views about money, but I'll then help you open up the rest of your years of life. So for me, it was just simply, it wasn't even a thought process. It was just that's what I was passionate about.
Yeah, it is. It's a very difficult topic for many people to discuss, and for you to be so open about it, especially about your journey with debt. I read an interview that you did talking about how you guys were about 24,000 or 22,000 pounds in debt. And as you mentioned, it was more or less like your husband's debt coming into the relationship. How do you credit your openness to talking about money too? Like where does that come from? How did you become so comfortable with being able to discuss money in such a comfortable way?
I think I just know no other way to talk about money, to be honest. I am a great believer in the more conversations you have, the less taboo things become. And you might have seen on my channel, I've even shown our household budget, like literally how much money we bring in. And then a great conversation starter for a lot of people was we make giving part of our monthly budget. So we have 2 small boys up here in Glasgow in our family, and there's food on the table, there's a roof over our head, and so we will invest, we will save, but there's also a portion that's given away to causes or charities, or the ripple effect from our little family. I just know no other way, because I really do believe that the more honest you are around your habits, somebody else might well say, oh, well, actually, that's a habit I would like to put in my life, or that I resonate towards that. And I think I've certainly grown up with money not being a thing that's talked about. In Scotland, or the culture that I was, it was very much, I couldn't tell you how much my dad earned for a living or any of those things. And we're still in the mindset of money being a thing that values us as a person, where it's just a number. It's just an amount of money and that you get as a resource. So I know no other way than talking about money, in the hope that we break down some of these barriers.
Yeah, I just kind of think of money as a scorecard on where you are in life, certain things, but it's a scorecard that you get to define yourself, right? Like, it doesn't have to be. That's why it's called personal finance, right? It's not what your aspirations are with your money may be totally different from somebody else's aspirations, and it's having this understanding that you're essentially like running your own race. Absolutely. Versus relative to like thinking you're running a race against somebody else.
Absolutely. It's just a resource. It's just like your time or your energy. And again, it doesn't matter how much money you have. It's actually all about what you're doing with it. Because you can be a millionaire, but you can spend $999,000. There's people who aren't managing their money with large amounts and small amounts. So it's really all about what you're doing with it, what the goals are important to you, and then also how you feel about your money as well.
There was one thing that you mentioned a moment ago about not necessarily having resources in the UK about money management, personal finance. Here in the United States, it's big.
It's a big. We
got a lot. Dave Ramsey.
Yes.
Who else? There's he's probably like the biggest traditional money management influencer, so to speak. I mean, he was an influencer before influencers were even a word with his radio show.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of curious about that in terms of the culture there in the UK, because obviously we have similarities, but I think here in the United States we are the most consumeristic country in the entire world, which is why it creates these problems that need to be solved with content around money management. But is that kind of the case also in the UK? I've been to the UK before. I've been to London, and it reminds me a lot of New York. But are people there like very focused on spending as much as they are here in the United States?
I think it's a human characteristic globally. I don't think it's just US or UK. What you tend to find is the areas that are more affluent, then people might use money in different ways that don't back up what they actually feel about themselves. So they might equate, the value of their salary is actually their worth. And then the goal becomes, well, if I earn $500,000 or $1 million or $2 million, that defines me. And I think it's just human nature. So I believe money amplifies what's in your heart anyway. So if you're somebody who's generous, you'll be generous with any type of money you have. If you're somebody who feels that they want to maybe cover up some habits or something that they don't like, they might overspend anyway. I don't think it's necessarily which country you're from. I think it's human nature that money is then amplifying. Yeah,
it is. It's it's just, it really, it seems, it does, when you put it out that way, it does really seem like it's an issue with the wealthier countries, because you just have more of it, like, I mean, that's one thing that I try to keep in perspective myself when it comes to money is like, I feel fortunate that I have enough to cover what the basic needs, and everything else that, maybe extra, I have to stress out over that, even like the idea potentially of like buying a home or something like that, can afford to rent a place. Like, there's no need to like stress out over purchasing a home. That's an extra thing. You touched on it a little bit there in terms of like your childhood and the conversations or lack of conversations that you had around money growing up. And you mentioned also that you've never really had trouble with debt before you got into your marriage with your husband. But what was your relationship like with money growing up?
I think it was always, whatever we needed, the money would either be found or we'd have to save up for it. I grew up in kind of a lower middle class family over here in Glasgow. So my dad worked full time, my mum stayed at home. We lived in a good part of Glasgow, a good education, everything. The thing that I really remember was credit cards or loans were never talked about really in our house. It was always assumed you have the physical money and that's when you get the thing. My dad always believed in, the second-hand cars. My first car maybe cost me like £300 or something, when you're 17. It was always, whatever you need, we get a kind of fair and an honest version of that. It wasn't the most, extravagant. It wasn't the basic. It was what would do the job. And so for me, I just grew up like that. I would save part of my wage, I would spend part of my wage, and it was just, I've never been tempted to have credit cards or anything like that. So I probably had a healthy attitude that unless I had the cash, it was staying out the door.
Yes. So I imagine, so it sounds like early on in your life, you had a really good handle on spending what you had and then also saving it. But then I imagine it wasn't until like you started doing YouTube and content creation where the investment element entered the picture.
Yeah. So we never talked about investments in my family. My dad never talked about pensions or understood compound interest or investing in the stock market. I just grew up with believing that you get a job and that's your lot for your 40 or 50 years, however you work it. So yeah, it wasn't until I started learning about paying off debt. Then I realised this magical word passive income started appearing in a lot of books and talking, I read Tony Robbins' Money Master the Game and, Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Workweek, all the classics, if you like. And something just clicked in my brain that was, okay, I don't actually have to work for money. I can actually use money or use my talents and create a business or create ways that money appears as well as me earning money. And it completely blew my mind that such a thing could exist, that you could actually, have investments or passive incomes. And that just put me in a whole spiral of learning more and more about it as much as I could.
I imagine too that just changed your whole perspective on your life trajectory too, in terms of your career, right? Like you had a very, and we'll talk about this in a moment, but I'm saying had because you were able to leave that job, but you had a very lucrative and successful career in IT in IT sales, right? Yeah. And so you're probably just like everybody else in the Western world, like go to college, get a job, work that job for like 30 plus years and retire, and then you can enjoy your money. So these new ideas where I imagine we're just totally shifting and moving you in a different place of where your life could be.
It was life-changing, especially because what led me, and I think that's always where you get the greatest inspiration, when you're at desperation. And so for me, as I shared, it was that night believing that I had no choice but to go to full-time work and leave my 2 young boys at home. And I think as a mother, father, or whatever dynamic you have in a family unit, that really gets to where you think I have no control over where I'm spending my time. And I think it was that moment, then learning about investing and talking about the FIRE movement, so financial independence, retiring early, all these kind of new ways of thinking about money. It changed my life completely, and it was that split moment where actually it was like, well, wait a minute, there's a different route that you can take, or there's multiple different routes. It's not just get a job, you've got your degree, and that's the only route to enjoy life. It was a pivotal point in my life.
So coming across this information and finding it, I imagine it probably, did it just all start with like a Google search, or how did you discover some of these ideas?
I picked up a book called I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. I don't know if you've read that one yourself. So that book, I think it's one of the best money books out there still to this day. But he produced a very practical book about learning about how to pay off debt, how to understand pensions, or, when you talk about your investment for retirements, we call them pensions over here, even talking about different accounts, savings accounts where you could invest tax-free. You have your Roth IRA, I think it is, and things like that. We have different versions over here. And so for me, that very practical level of terms I'd never heard about, compound interest and that, it just was life-changing, to know that these terms and what to do with them. And that's still one of my favourite books, actually. That was a book that is so well structured. That I had read Tony Robbins, Money Master the Game, and some other levels, and they're quite high level, but this was incredibly personal, incredibly practical, and a real gift of a book.
I have not read that book, but I know Ramit just from listening to him and on like Tim Ferriss's podcast and other podcasts as well. He's a very smart guy. I just find it funny how I get, him and Tim always talk about how their books, like the books that kind of kickstarted their careers, have these really clickbaity titles. Exactly. I will teach you to be rich.
Okay, I'm there.
Exactly. It kind of reeks of like, wow, this sounds like a scam. And even 4-hour work week, like, come on, I have my copy of 4-hour work week behind me. And it's like, work 4 hours a week. Come on, like it definitely like polarizes people when they see it. But if you actually read those books, and again, I have 4-hour work week, I've read it. And yes, that was, for me, that was a book that kind of changed my thinking on like, wow, you can actually, live and work remotely. I didn't know that was a possibility. Exactly. How did you discover that book? Did somebody give it to you, or did you just find it?
It was on Reddit. It was a discussion about personal finance, and you see a bit of rabbit hole in Google, but Reddit forums, and somebody said it was the best book, and so picked up a copy. And I would totally agree with that.
On Reddit, what forums were you visiting? Was it personal finance, the FIRE forum?
No, I think it was personal finance. I'm not quite brave enough to go in the FIRE forum, I don't think. That's a different kettle of fish. So I think it was the personal finance one, and then I also went into the investing one as well. Yeah,
I was watching one of your on your vlog channel, family vlog channel with your husband, and your husband made this great point about how you two are not necessarily trying to achieve FIRE, like financial independence, retire early. He said something, I wrote this down because I thought, oh, that's actually pretty good. So, earn forever with limited effort, right?
Yes,
like
exactly.
that,
I love it.
I love that. When he said that, I'm like, oh man, I gotta remember that. Keep a note on that. Ask her about that. Because that FIRE movement is very interesting, because so many people are a niche of people who are very obsessed with it. But, it's at the same time like retiring and then not having anything to do. I think you could then lose purpose for with your life. And so, at least what you're doing, it seems like you guys are trying, you enjoy what you're doing. Like you enjoy working on the things that you're working. It's just a matter of not feeling like it has to consume your life like your day jobs used to.
Yes. And I think ultimately what people are looking for is time freedom. It's not freedom to retire. You're not actually looking for the goal being that you can sit and, eat chips all day in front of the TV and Netflix. You actually want control of your schedule. Yes. And that's why our journey, it really only took us probably about 1.5 to 2 years from starting a business and building passive incomes to make that happen. And it wasn't with focus, or I'm very anti-hustle culture. Gary Vee and all that, I think they're fantastic, but I think they're teaching a mindset of it's about how many hours you put in rather than the quality of hours. And it was really for us, FIRE, a lot of people focus on how low can they get their expenses so that they can save and invest as much as possible. And then one day, and that's the key word, one day I can enjoy my life. One day I'll be able to do what I want. And I would really say, actually, it's driving habits that when you get at that destination, you probably might not be happy with what you've had to sacrifice, or what you've had to not do. You've not had to go on holiday, you might not have to done various things. I actually want to teach people that it's about making money choices for life right now to be your someday. So a classic example is, I don't know if you've maybe caught some of my YouTube channel, I had a mental breakdown 2 years ago. I was in hospital for 3 weeks, And from that occasion, my husband and I sat down, both in corporate jobs, both with good wages. We took a 50% pay cut, and my husband retired so he could be with the children and we could balance life. I was able to work remotely and have a bit more freedom. He couldn't in the part of work that he did. And so to some people that they would say, well, you're losing half your money. That makes no sense. You're not going to achieve your goals. But they failed to miss that money being lost meant that our quality of life jumped up, not just double, multiples. So I always say to people, these groups and philosophies of FIRE movement or passive income, take the ideas, but what does it actually mean to you to have time freedom? It could simply be that you just want to go part-time. You just want to have the conversation at work and say, actually, could I work 4 hours a day rather than 10 or 9? Have that conversation, like actually make it happen and start doing things that there would be, you're meant to enjoy life right now. That is what you're meant to live right now. So use money as a resource to make that happen.
Yeah, it's also, I think of it too as like trying to find that balance of enjoying your life right now, but also making sure that you're taking care of your future self too. Yeah. And that is that's the fine line that it seems so difficult to walk when it comes to money management. But the concept of time that you're talking about, it seems like that historically, until maybe this past decade or even the last several years or so, has been lost on people, like the value of it, right? And like what you're saying there, I could totally resonate with that, like being willing to take a pay cut. I mean, I had a corporate job 5 years ago in a great industry. I used to work in professional sports, and it was amazing, but like it just cost me so much time. And I was at a stage in my life where I no longer wanted to have most of my days and weeks consumed by by that career. But most people, like you said, they're not really willing to, they don't think about it from that perspective of like, well, if I quit this job, then I'm going to lose money, you know. You don't think about the time that they'll gain from it.
And a lot of the time, one of my favorite things to do on the YouTube channel, I will actually ask people to send in their budgets, so anonymously, and as a third party looking at their money, they will tell me what their goals are. So what's important to them? Do they want to travel? Do they want to go part-time or be with the kids? And then often I will be able to look at their money and say, well, actually, you can achieve that right now. If we, strip down these bills, we maybe pay off the car finance, maybe, think about saving. Often they have the money, physical resource to make their goals happen. So it sometimes takes that somebody just thinking outside the box and saying, there's actually another way. You think there's only one route to get to your destination, but actually, have you thought about this? Yeah,
just seeing life from a different perspective. Education is such a huge key. I mean, especially when it comes to money. I mean, and I think that's where, as you have pointed out in your career, like there just is a lack of that. I don't know if that's just like intentional by the system to kind of keep us working, but that's like the real key. I mean, I was talking to my mom last night, and she worked a long career, 30 or almost 40 years as a nurse. And she just kind of talked about how she did not, know these things about investing until like about 10 years into her career, and how she probably could have retired a lot earlier had she known some of these things about how to make her money work for her. So I want to now get into the nitty gritty of growing your YouTube channel. In those early days, you're experimenting, trying different things, start taking it seriously in 2018. You're creating, you're putting stuff out there. How did you stick with the content creation process early on when you weren't getting views? What was the motive? What kept you motivated to keep going?
It's still the same motivation right now. It's, do you enjoy what you're doing, and do you think it's helping others? And so, it took me 9 months to get to 1,000 subscribers and hit the metric, for watch time and things like that. And it really is, do you think people will enjoy, and do you enjoy the process? And I think for me, I really enjoy talking and starting conversations, and I like that somebody could watch me and then have a ripple effect in their life as well. So it's just a case of I really just enjoyed putting out content, and so I still honor that with every video.
So you were really just enjoying the process of making the videos and putting it out there, and even if you got
2 views or it doesn't matter.
2 views or 100 views or whatever, I'm sure you were just like through the moon. It's interesting to me. I wonder if you had this perspective or could relate to it. I've talked to other YouTubers who are in the personal finance niche, and one of the creators, his name is Kai Andrew, and he talked about the idea of just, kind of having little goals. Like, if I could just make $1 a day, that'd be awesome. Like if I get to $30 a day, like amazing. Like I can buy a sandwich. I had another creator who talked about if I could just earn enough, like from AdSense, to buy Chipotle, that is enough for me. And so many people, I think, go into the content creation journey of like, I'm gonna go viral and I'm gonna make like $1 million from AdSense. Like, was that something that you could relate to in terms of just keep setting like the expectations a little bit low in terms of what you could potentially get out of it?
I think rather than focus on views, you're right, it's probably a little more once you hit monetization, you keep going because that's a fantastic goal. So you hit the parameters and then there's a sigh of relief. And I think it is as soon as you get $1 a day, and then when you hit maybe $50, and for us it became, within about a year and a half, actually hitting enough that it replaced my day job with just AdSense. So that's an incredible achievement. And then equally, I do now feel myself shifting towards I am just wanting the videos. Like, I don't mind who sees them. If something takes off, that's wonderful. But I know that every video I'm being very deliberate with the conversation I'm starting, with the help I'm giving. But certainly at the start, I love the fact that you have got these little milestones anyway. Naturally, you do want to get to 1,000 subscribers. You maybe do want to make a little bit of money. For us, it was definitely when it became a life-changing amount of money that you really are like, wow, this is something that's taken off for us quite dramatically.
Yeah, tell me about what kind of equipment you were using early on. Did you invest in a camera, or were you somebody that was just starting with the phone?
No, I got a camera right away. I got maybe a £500 camera, just the best vlogging camera I could afford. I wanted to do it right. I wanted to make sure that I did it as best as I could. But certainly since then, we've definitely upgraded a number of times. Changed the quality, changed external mics, lights, quite an elaborate setup. But for me, I felt getting the best camera that I could afford that felt not too extravagant, but certainly a good general vlogging camera. I think that helps, because although you can make great content on your phone, I just felt that if I was using something a bit, just the best that I could afford at that moment to invest in, it then made me feel that I was giving the best HD quality, or, just giving the user the best experience as well.
You early on in your YouTube journey were named a YouTube creator on the rise.
Yes.
Could you talk about that moment and even just describe like what that was like to get that notification from YouTube of earning that honor?
Yeah, that's something very, very special. I can remember where I was. We were at swimming lessons with my son and I got this email and I thought, oh, that's a bit different. Oh, what does that mean? You're going to be on the trending page. And I remember that night, you only get 24 hours or 12 hours notice, I think it is. You're going to appear the next day. And I went home and I made sure all my videos had descriptions and everything was as nice for that experience. It was really humbling. Because they pick out of the local area, so it was out of the UK creators. There's no other experience for it, although you have to be prepared that you're going to get a lot of people watching your stuff very quickly. So I think I was also prepared you're going to get a mixture of comments very suddenly as well. You're going to get people who love your work and maybe some people who don't, but it's certainly one of those experiences that, yeah, it was just incredible.
Did that make you nervous at all? To have people now, like having more people watching your videos, right? Like obviously that's what you aspire to aspire for, but at the same time you mentioned there like preparing for potentially like the worst, where people are going to come in and maybe like blast you or be negative or whatnot with their comments on your videos?
I think you realise that a lot of people are going to see your content, but in my head I was incredibly excited. Like, that was the emotions you feel. It was, wow, I've got this opportunity to be in front of a lot of people that wouldn't normally see my content, and you don't actually get a choice in what videos they put on the little banner. It's just they pick usually your most recent videos and a mixture. And so if I was choosing, I would probably put different videos to lead people into my content. But that same day, like, that's probably been my largest spike of subscribers in one day that I've ever had. And it's not the largest amount of views. I've had bigger views since then, but it was, I just saw it as a fantastic opportunity, and almost like I was ready. Whoever was going to enjoy my content, let it be. And you get the daft people who leave a comment, you just block them. You just remove it. You don't give them the space any after that.
How many videos do you remember that you had at that point?
Oh, probably about 150, I would think. Probably above 100, I would say. Yeah, definitely, because I was putting out 2 a week. So it'd be probably at least about a year and a half into making videos.
And then subscribers, where were you at that point?
Oh, I think about 10 or 11,000, probably something like that. Yeah, because they tend to pick people who are probably below about 20,000 or so in the UK anyway. So it's when you're just kind of starting off and just taking off, they pick.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was curious about, was just where that figure was. What, in terms of like the growth of the channel, getting from like 0 to like your first 1,000 subscribers, and 1,000 to like 10,000 subscribers, and then eventually hitting like the YouTube creator on the rise and going from there. What was that like? Was it basically just kind of like almost like your investments, right? Where it's just like, if you're investing in index funds, it's just like keep dropping more into the bucket, and then just it compounds and just grows over time?
My journey, I think, is like that exactly. I've found that I've had quite steady growth. A couple of times it's gone quicker, and then again it kind of flattens out a little bit. And the best way to describe it, I'm actually very lucky that I have a Google account manager at the moment, somebody who's like encouraging and mentoring me in my YouTube channel. Very blessed to have that. And they reminded me that actually you probably want the slow and steady growth, because you're actually getting people who have subscribed to your channel not through a viral hit, but because they like your content consistently, and in some way they'll probably more likely to come back. They'll remember you because they're showing up in slow and steady groups. And so for me, I'm actually quite thankful it has been slow and steady, because that way I've not had a sudden video take off and then not got the same views or watch time because it's been a one-hit wonder. But in that, I'm open to all people who want to watch. If anyone wants one of my videos to go viral, I'm okay with that as well.
Well, 2020 was a big year for you, because
yes.
I know in one of your videos where you recapped just how your channel grew, you grew your audience by 40,000 new subscribers. You had about 20,000 in
That's right.
2019. Yep. So 131% year over year growth.
Yes.
What do you credit that to? I kind of have an inkling as to why, but I would be curious to hear what your take on it was.
What do I credit to? Do you know what comes to mind there? I believe as a creator right now more than ever, I'm only in charge of how good my product is. So I'm only in charge of, like, can I make my video the best it can be? And I actually think, maybe that's the answer to your question, I think over the past year I have pushed myself to become a better creator. What I actually found in the past year was a lot of new creators in the UK were starting in the finance field. There seemed to be a huge surge of people talking about money from this pandemic, which is great. Love seeing more people do that and starting channels. But actually what I found was more and more people that felt were very similar to me. And I actually wanted to now start to stand out and kind of trend and lead the way again and see, well, actually, what could we do differently? And I think I'd like to think actually the quality of what I'm producing has increased and maybe testament to some of the growth that I've had. But I'm a firm believer in whatever comes your way. It's just meant to be. There's no secret sauce. There's no, formula. It's just whatever hands it gets into. My job is to make sure it's the best that I can make it.
What were some of the ways that you tried to level up your YouTube content creation process? What did those look like?
For me, I because I talk about money, which can be a little bit boring sometimes, I'm looking for different ways to change scene. I'm looking for ways to have more graphics, a lot more B-roll. I'll also try and do like more examples as well. I'll screen share and try and show more real world examples. Because a lot of content at the start, I know that I was just sitting in front of a camera and talking about a concept. And I think I've been very influenced by a lot of channels that I watch, like Matt DeLero and, Peter McKinley and all. There's a lot of different people who are doing very videography based channels that I like the storytelling aspect, and that's what I'm now trying to bring into money, that I want it to be a journey in the video. I want it to be something that you stick with and watch the 24 minutes or the 20 minutes, so that I know for a fact I'm seeing myself picture a full video and elements of it rather than just what message I want to get out there.
Yeah, that's one other thing I have noticed about your videos is that they are around like 20 minutes long. Like
I like to chat.
Yeah. Well, is that the main decision there behind why you chose that length of video? Is just you just enjoy being on camera and sharing your story?
I think so, yeah. It's not intentional. I do try and make it as concise as possible, but I do love talking to people, and I'd like to think that comes across. I want to make the topic, when you give me your time, I want to try and give you as much as I can before you go off into the world.
You know what also really strikes me about your content is that it seems like you're using the process of creation as a way to synthesize your ideas on everything that you're learning. So like you said earlier, like you kind of see yourself just like 2 steps ahead of everybody else. It's not like you're some sort of guru sitting on like a throne somewhere, like I'm Queen MamaFurFur, like listen to me with my scepter of benevolence on money management and personal finance. But you really seem to be just like you come across as somebody who is just like, I'm learning on this journey with you. I'm just sharing what I've learned as well, and kind of pulling people along for the ride. Is that like a fair characterization to make?
I think so. What I will say is I know that I've developed a lot of habits that I wish I had years and years ago with money, and that's always what I lead with. It's kind of like, what are the messages I would want my children to have? If I wanted to save that viewer from pain points, what's the best thing that I can keep saying to them, the best encouragement I can keep giving them, and almost be like the positivity around money. Like a lot of people think that their circumstances are very fixed and this is the way things are, and I always like to rebel and say, no, there's always ways to do things. If you've got a goal, if you've got a desire, there's always a way. But you're probably right. I'm probably just a couple of steps in front, and I'm just, come on, we can do it together.
Yeah. So the reason I bring that up is like I sometimes think about like content creation for me is like a way to clarify my thinking about things, especially like if I'm writing or something like that. So I'm wondering if that is something for you, especially these concepts, right? Like, I mean, I never, personally for me, I never knew anything about like Roth IRAs and how, solo 401ks worked here in America until a couple of years ago. So I'm wondering for you if it's similar, where you're learning about these things and then by making a video and having to summarize it in the most concise and easy to understand way possible, that it also helps you to understand those concepts better yourself. Oh,
absolutely. I see myself as like a teacher, an educator. That's what I think that right now I've been called to do. And it's one of the things that I love to hear from people, that they find my information straightforward and easy to understand. Because there's a great quote by Einstein that said, if you can't say it to a 6-year-old, then you don't really know it yourself. And I think that's always my mindset of, do I understand this topic? Yes. Okay, what can I pass on so that somebody else can then feel that they understand it and can apply it? Particularly with money, I think it's so important to know why you're doing a thing, too many people just copy what somebody else is investing in or how someone else is saving. So I really love to kind of allow people to then make their own judgment and their own choice based on the information I've got.
So walk me through what the process of creating a video looks like, from like idea all the way up to shooting to then editing and then publishing. What does it look like for you?
At the moment, I tend to once a week, usually the first day of the week, actually have like a brainstorming session. So I use Asana, so I just use a generic somewhere to hold my notes. And so I'll sit down and I'll have a big long list of every time I get inspiration, I add it to my Asana. So even if I get a title suggestion or a topic, I'll quickly throw it in there. And really once a week, I'll come back to that Asana spread, that kind of list, and see which topic feels right for that week. So I try to do actually 2 videos a week. I've been doing that for a number of years now. And so I'll pick out the topics that feel right, that feel quite current, that I could help people with, and just map out the full script as much as possible. So I'll use my iPhone as a little auto cue when I'm actually filming. So I've got slides, so I know exactly what I'm going to say. I've mapped out the B-roll, where I'd like to be, if I'm using my computer, and that kind of scenario. So that's all laid out in that kind of Monday creation session. And then usually over the course of the week, I'll dedicate a whole day or a couple of days to filming. So we've got the rig set up in the house that we can move it about quite easily. So I can actually portably move my camera kit around. It's on a roller system, so it's not fixed. So I can actually just move it around completely around the room or different locations. And I'll usually spend a day doing my videos, actually recording them. From that, I'm very lucky now that we have an editor. So last year, I worked with a company, and I've maintained that relationship where a chap will actually edit my videos for me. So again, I would really never entrust that unless I trusted the person to do it in a way that I would like. I have to feel that they understand me and what I'm trying to achieve. And so I have a video editor now that does the actual edits. So normally it'll go to him, go to Greg during the week, and then at the end of the week he will send me back the first cut, and I'll ask for any changes, or I might rework some stuff, maybe change graphics, and then generally that's it, ready for uploading. So it's it's a smooth process. But the one thing I would stress is I really believe in creative inspiration, and certainly on my own time during the course of that week, I'll go for walks. I'll designate quiet time, because I think it's really important to actually get inspired topics. I don't want to do the same as everyone else. I don't want to just, see another creator do a video and then copy it. I want to actually feel, okay, what conversations do I want to have based on what I'm learning about, or perhaps something I've seen on the news, or something that I think is really going to help someone moving forward.
What would you say is the biggest challenge involved with that process? Like what is something that is like an obstacle that may sometimes get in the way of creating content on a regular basis?
Me. It's just me. It's straight up me. Do you know, that's a funny thing? It's actually sometimes feeling motivated. So actually feeling like, does today feel like the day that I want to film? And most of the time you get up and you go, actually, I can't be bothered. I don't, I'd rather go to the bed or go to the gym. And it's actually the days where you want to show up, they're excellent. But the days that you show up because you want to be part of a conversation, or you want to still give something to your audience, those are the days that often bring out the best videos, where you recognize that every day you might not feel inspired to turn on the camera, but you know that the content that you've been inspired by, you want to still give that to people as well. So it's really just myself. It is a straight up, I get in my own way.
Yeah, and then you mentioned there like outsourcing editing to an editor. What was that process like to find an editor? Because like you mentioned, it can be a bit challenging, because there's this feeling of, can they like convey the style that I've been able to convey? Like, will it lose a bit of my personality if I like hand this off to someone else? Tell me about how that process looked like for you, and the process of just letting go of that part of a part of a part of creation.
No, that's a great point. So interesting, the chap that we have right now, he's actually been my third editor that I've used. So the reason for having an editor, I was working a full-time job as well as making YouTube, as well as being, a mum and a wife for those 2 years. And it was then just becoming a sacrifice of time. It was one area that I knew that somebody could probably do a better job at. So I'm really good at turning up in front of the camera, of knowing what inspired content to make, but actually editing, that's something that somebody else could probably do better than me. So I actually tried, there was one editor we had who they were fine. It was still, it was working out okay. And then I got another one that was actually a US based company. And unfortunately, this is the problem. The company that I used the second time, it was part of an organisation where they were just churning out videos for people. So actually what happened was, it was a different editor every time, it felt like, and it was just somebody there was no soul to it. There was no person feeling the content and really resonating with me. It was just, can I get this edited as quickly as possible and back to you? So actually, the second editor, that experience made me want to find somebody who actually knew and understood and wanted to dedicate as almost like their side hustle to my editing. Like, could they do it as part of their day job? And that's what happened. So I went from a company doing it, a couple of months of me doing it again myself, to then finding somebody through a company who wanted a side hustle, that he wanted to do it as his part-time job. And ever since, I've been employing him, because when I'm having the dialogue with my editor, he's edited 100 videos now of my own content. He gets what I mean when I talk to him. So I will talk to him while I'm filming and going, right, Greg, can you add in a little thing here? Can you do this? And I'm like, right, see you later. I'll just chat to him as if I'm chatting to anyone normally. So I think for me, I find it beneficial actually having a dedicated person who is my editor, because they could understand me and how I structure and how I film so much better.
Yeah, it's just really important to find somebody who is a collaborator with you, right?
Yes,
not,
exactly.
Not necessarily just somebody who is like gonna
churn it out.
Churn it out, or just even like take all of your directions, right? Because sometimes they might see something that you don't see and add a little flavor that actually improves a video that you didn't even know and have in mind originally.
But that's all about collaboration, right? I'm very open that I want to hire and work with the very best people. And that's what I actually encourage my editor and say, tell me if you want, if there's different packages that you can add and edit and do graphics. Tell me anything you need to do your job better. And I allow, I say to him, just add whatever you feel works right. Because ultimately, if I don't agree with it, he'd remove it anyway. But I want him actually to bring his own flavour to it.
Yeah, I want to shift gears here into something that it's related, but a little bit different here in terms of the topic. It related to content creation, but just, I don't know, for lack of better terms here, just like the responsibility or the feeling that you have associated with having an audience. Does it ever get overwhelming at times to think like, wow, there are like thousands of people around the world who are watching my videos, or has it gotten to a point where it doesn't really cross your mind that much anymore?
I think it doesn't cross my mind really, and I think I'm aware that my numbers are going up, but the goal for me isn't to get to 1 million subscribers as quickly as I can. That's not where my fulfillment would be. I'm always thinking that 79, 80,000 people have subscribed so far. How can I nurture them? How can I keep making their lives better with what I'm doing? So I don't, if you put those people in a room, it would probably astound you the amount of stadiums and stadiums worth. But I've never thought about the volume of people. I always thought about actually people who've subscribed to my channel, they've given me their attention. Can I keep giving them value with every video? And then as other people add on, well, that's just whatever's meant to be.
Do you ever think about the fact that you have this level of like micro fame now, like that people, I wonder too, if like, have people recognized you from time to time, like just out and about living your normal life, like, hey, yes, I watch your YouTube channel.
Yeah, I'll share funny stuff. I've only been recognized once, and we were out at a playground, a local playground with our two boys, and somebody asked my husband, "Oh, is that?" And they got my name wrong. They got my name. "Oh, is that so and so?" They called me the wrong name. MamaFurFur. And my husband went, "Yes." And they were just standing there. I said, "Oh, do you want to ask me anything? Do you want to ask me investment com? Can you ask me anything to money?" That's the only time I've been recognised. But I think that with YouTube, I always just assumed that I'm just like everyone else. So I've never experienced fame, really. It's just, people would maybe recognise me if they watch my particular channel. It's not the same as being a pop star or anything.
Yeah. And I imagine too, I mean, I think that's one of the, at least the benefits of being like a smaller YouTuber, or somebody who's not, when I say smaller, like somebody who's not like 50 million subscribers or something like that, or even just being a YouTuber in general, is like you can kind of still enjoy some level of anonymity.
Absolutely,
to a certain extent, versus like somebody who is a pop star or something like that who's just mobbed all the time.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm sure that's not something that you would particularly want, right? Like to be just mobbed by people. My
shopping. No, exactly. I don't mind chatting, but not that much.
Yeah. I want to talk to you also about collaborations, because that's how I discovered you. I discovered you through your collaboration with Macy, aka Savannah Smiles. Many people might better know her as Graham Stephan's girlfriend.
Yes.
How did that come about? How did you two end up connecting and doing content together?
Sure. It was just as simple as I reached out to her on Instagram. So I was watching her chat. I'm a big fan of Graham Stephan, and I follow him, and obviously he mentioned his girlfriend. And I just really liked her way of doing lifestyle videos. And I noticed she was doing also some money topics as well. And I thought, you know what? It would allow her to get access to different audience as well, being in the UK. And I thought this could be really something quite fun. So just as simple as I dropped a DM and said, I really enjoy your work, and I'd been commenting on some of her videos as well, and just positioned it to her. And I think it came across really well, because she was talking also about business and money. And as I say, I just wanted to expose some of the UK audience to her work. I thought it was, recognition for what she was doing as well. So
that was part of, or that was like the value add, maybe you might say, was like, hey, like this is an opportunity to expand your reach into the United Kingdom. Because sometimes I guess people, when they pitch a collaboration or try to work with someone, they're not necessarily thinking about what's in it for the other person that you're asking. You were doing that.
Yeah, exactly. You have to bring value. I mean, the same way, like if anyone approaches me, that's the great thing. A lot of times when people are used to those conversations, they'll say, I would like to add value to you in this way, because you want to be delivering more value than you're taking from somebody else. Because anytime I'm allowing another creator in my personal space, on my viewer base, they have to be matching up with what I would want my message to be, what my audience to hear, and also that they're getting value from being part of that. So it's the same philosophy with any sponsored videos or any brands I work with. I've got to use the product, I've got to like it. It's got to bring true value to my audience. It's not just, that's something very sacred to me.
Yeah, that's something I want to touch on with you in a moment here, but it's a good way for us to, since we're kind of touching on these topics now, to kind of discuss the business side of the MamaFurFur brand, I guess we could say. I do want to talk about that concept that you discussed in that video collaboration with Macy. You talked about this concept, and I mentioned this in the email in which I reached out to you to have you on the podcast, this concept of the money tree.
Yes,
for anybody who is not familiar with that, can you kind of give like a quick overview of what that is and how that works when it comes to thinking about essentially creating an online business as a creator?
Sure. It's basically like a one-page business plan. And I think it works for every business, whether it's content or not. And it's all about literally thinking about what are the roots of your business? How are you going to drive people into you? And it tends to be free content is the best way to do this for any business. So that would be, YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, whatever social media would allow a big audience to get to see your work. And then from that, the idea is then to nurture them on a journey as a tree grows through the, the roots up to the bark, to the leaves. And it's also about tailoring also the value you're giving them, but also the value that you're charging relatively to what you're delivering. So for me, an example being that as I go from my roots is my free content on YouTube, I'm then hoping that as they move up a value with me, that they would want to buy some of my products. So that would be almost like the leaves, the first step in it. So that could be, I've got spreadsheets to help people with budgeting that we charge for. I've got courses, I've got books, things that are, you might call low ticket items, but something that shows that I'm going to give you immense value now that you give me money in exchange. So rather than just your eyeballs or, your view time, let me actually give you something of value for a monetary amount. And then as you go further up, really the top level would be what is the most value that you would give them in a bespoke offering. So that could be like one-to-one coaching, or it could be, mentorship. But you see there's a natural flow, a journey for your customer. And that for me is something that I've kind of stuck true to. I focus very much on the free content, and then that first level in where they're getting used to actually doing business with you, if you like, outside of YouTube. But then as they grow up and move up, you're able to develop relationships that allow a business to actually develop, that where you're giving them more than just free content, you're giving them actual value that can help their life as well.
Coming up with products to sell your audience, is the ideation process for that fairly similar to like coming up with ideas for videos?
A little bit. It's just simply inspiration. So in terms of one of the big seller in our business is actually, a spreadsheet. We've been selling it for 2 years, and we've got nearly 3,000 people have bought one spreadsheet from us. So it's 3,000 families that could have been changed with that one product. It was simply because we wanted to create something in our own life. So it all came from a problem and solving it ourselves. And that's where, whenever I'm thinking of any ideas and products, it's not simply another way for people to pay me. I want to solve a problem that I've had or that I believe you've had, take away a pain point. And so I'll be very strategic in that I'll only make things, again, that I believe in and that I believe will add value to people.
What about in terms of pricing all of those things? I know that's always a difficult thing for not just creators who are creating business, but any entrepreneur, even if they're not creators themselves, is figuring out pricing for their products. Was that a matter of you just kind of testing the market and seeing, hey, maybe I'll put it here and see if there's traction here, but maybe raise it to a certain level if you notice that there's a lot of people purchasing? What does that look like for you?
It is very organic, to be honest. I'll think about what is the price I would pay for this product, but also know that I'm over delivering. So there's a basic model that says you want your stack to be so large that the amount that you charge is a no-brainer. And I think that's what I've always gone by. It has to be an amount of money that seems like they're getting a great deal, that seems like it will change their life, but it's so cheap they could not take it. And a lot of the time, it will just be on my initial intuition of what feels right. And then also, if I adapt or change it, I will also then look to maybe increase the price if the value increases. But a great test, as I always say to anyone, is you only need one customer to buy your product at a price to know that it's the right price. And so if you put something out and believe that's the right price, you feel you're adding lots of value for it. If you get one customer, you've proved that your price was the right price. It's now, if you like, your opportunity to find similar people who also see the value in it. And so far, I've never, I've not lowered any prices. I've always just gone at what I think's right, and then, served that audience as I see fit.
Now, in terms of sponsorships, as you mentioned, alluded to a little bit earlier, is you're very particular about the kinds of companies and people that you work with. How much inbound are you getting these days from people who are just like, here's my product, like, please put it on your channel?
Quite a lot. It's probably daily. It is probably daily, but and it tends to be a lot of cryptocurrency at the moment, obviously. People want in on that. But my philosophy from the start has been, I will say a decent amount for any sponsored videos so that I don't need to do that many. I don't feel that I need one in order to put food on the table. It's always like a product that I believe in or I'm using that adds value. And so my pricing for these things is always been what I considered right for my time, but also a good amount that it sifts through the people who want to work with me and those that don't, just because I'm the cheapest, if that makes sense. I want it to be a value that adds value to my family's life, but then also I'm not having to accept every offer that comes on the table. And to give you context, on my channel, it's maybe one video every 6 months or one video every 4 months or something. I don't easily say yes to sponsored videos because I want the integrity of my channel to be, I use this product and that's why I'm recommending it. I don't take on sponsorships or anything where it's somebody just paying me to use it for the sake of it. It's all about, have I actually used it? Do I actually find value and know that it's a good product to recommend to other people?
How often are you going out and pitching brands and companies that you like and enjoy for sponsorship deals?
I don't do it that often, actually. I think at the moment it's very much that I've approached companies in the past and they've maybe said it wasn't the right time and things like that. And I tend to look and see what companies come towards me. But if there is products that I'm using that I've added to my repertoire, I will approach them. So probably maybe every 6 months. I don't certainly do it every week. And I think that's also the basis of the business as a whole, from all our streams of income, so YouTube revenue, affiliates, our products, anything else, it more than covers our household income. So there's not the same desperation, to make sure that I've not got to fill my pipeline, if you see what I mean. I'm genuinely believe I'm reaching out to companies only when there's that connection in place and making that the decision.
Also, part of your money tree is creating online courses and selling those. Tell me about just how you go about creating all of those and then launching them to your audience.
Sure, just in the same way I would make videos. So it really was, I wanted to offer a couple of courses, one on investing, one on budgeting, that allowed people to have a more personal journey with me. Because with videos, you only get that 20-minute snapshot. And what I found was people wouldn't watch them in the logical order that I would want to watch them in, to get that nice step by step. So that's where courses works beautifully, I think, as a content creator. Take the journey that is your niche and actually make a 10 or a 20 video series, and it allows them to have that one-on-one time with you on that journey. So it really was as straightforward as brainstorming the journey that I wanted my ideal person to have, and then filming the content, filming any graphics as well. My courses are video and text based, so just along the lines of what I've been doing already, but a packaged event for the customer.
What about in terms of the future? I mean, are there any ideas that you have or other opportunities that you want to maybe explore in terms of expanding that income generating pie that you have created?
My instincts right now this year, I want to write more books. So I actually want to reach more people with more publications. I've written one book, I've self-published one book, but I feel in my heart that I want to write more books. I feel this particular area. I see a lot of courses around money that are very expensive for money management and money mindset. And my passion would be to get a lot more knowledge from all levels of life and get that kind of financial empowerment. So I feel that's the next stage for me. And I think I would like to do more speaking. I feel like I'm getting more in group settings, actually meeting people, giving seminars and those kind of things, just about some of the money mindset and money management strategies that I've used and developed. I'd love to do that a little bit more as well.
So all of these things working together, along with getting AdSense revenue, essentially enabled you to leave your job earlier this year and go full time in it. And basically, you and your husband now just work on this business together. This is your whole venture. There are a couple things I want to ask you in regards to working a day job and then leaving a day job. First and foremost, when you had the day job, how were you balancing all of this? like just the YouTube creation, being a mom to 2 kids, and then also having to do the work for your day job? I know that you had the fortune of basically working remotely, right?
Yes, yep.
With your
Yep.
previous day job. So I'm sure that helped a little bit. But still, even then, there's so many hats that you were wearing.
Yeah, you just have to be very good time management, don't you? I think it was literally, recording during my lunch break. If I took a lunch break hour, getting up early, dare I say it, a little bit to work on ideas, and also working a little bit at night time. So very much, I didn't want the family to suffer. I always had the priority and my job, because it was paying, our living at the time. But it was just little pockets of time. Wherever I could get them, I would just make the most of it, really.
And then leaving the job, I'm on the surface, I know for many people, it might seem like a very easy decision. And maybe it was an easy decision for you to leave, but like, was it difficult at all to when you had that moment of like deciding between staying or going?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. If you look at the numbers, I could have left my job probably 6 months before I actually did at Christmas time. And for me, I still resonate with that mindset of this is what you're meant to do. A corporate job is the steady, dependable income. And this is something I really had to work on, that actually it's understanding that you could have a steady, dependable income through your passions and your gifts. That just, working for someone else suits a lot of people. But I really like my time freedom. and what happened was I noticed when my business was making multiples of my day job, so much, far outweighing it, I then started to resent my day job a little bit, because it required more effort to turn up for that rather than YouTube. And so I kind of made a decision at Christmas time, like, was I going to do another year? Was I going to do it all for another year, or was I going to leave? And telling my boss at the time that was it, I'd made the decision. Was one of the toughest things I've had to do. And you got the butterflies and the nerves and thinking, oh, is this the right thing? But I knew that I had to take a leap of faith. I knew, and it wasn't really a leap of faith really, because we'd built up a good, I call it a runway. I'd built up a good amount of savings. The business was doing well. So there was no way that we were going to take a nosedive. It was going to just keep going up and up.
While you were growing the channel, like, did people at work know that you were doing this? Did they, and if they did, were they curious about it, or were they asking you about it? Anything like that?
Yeah, people knew that I had a YouTube channel. I think probably maybe about a year and a half into it. So I didn't publish it on LinkedIn or anything, but I would just be talking about some of the things. I would also be teaching people that I was working with about money and saying, look, I talk about this on my YouTube channel. And I think in my last interview, when I was switching position within my old job, the boss who was interviewing me asked me about my YouTube channel, and was I thinking of leaving? No, I'm not leaving. No, it's fine. I can do it all. And I think towards the end, I was talking about stuff I was doing outside of work, about YouTube and things like that. And although you try and keep it separate, it's hard. Like when you're getting maybe Creator on the Rise, or I've been in newspapers here. I've been on things like I've been starting to get little recognition outside of work for the stuff that I was doing with MamaFurFur, and so I think naturally people were starting to check out my videos. I hadn't had any comments or anything actually on videos, but I think naturally they're probably seeing what I was doing.
So as we kind of wrap up here, a few more things I want to ask you about is your giving contributions. You mentioned this a little bit earlier, and I know from one of your videos that you give about 11%, 12% of your income to charitable organizations or causes that you believe in. Tell me about how you go about finding causes to give to, and also vetting them and really evaluating whether that is somewhere you want to distribute and disperse your money.
Sure. So it all goes back to a personal philosophy as well, that I believe money is a resource that we're managing. And so for me, as when we receive, I automatically want to give some away, let it affect, help other people. In terms of where we decide to give, I think it's a hugely personal decision, and it tends to be on inspiration. It tends to be that actually what we'll do is we'll look at our income during 1 month at a time, and my husband and I will chat about where do we feel inspired, where have we had uplift from. So it could be a church, it could be, something of that nature, or where do we feel a charity could use our money in something that's important to us. So recently we felt a strong inclination to help the homeless and people struggling in that way from the pandemic. And it just so happened that a charity popped up on my Instagram feed, and it's always inspiration, and that's who we donated a gift amount to. And it's like anything, I always believe the right inspiration comes. So you can do your best and make sure how they're going to spend it or what they're going to do with it. But I actually think if you've got the inspiration that that's where your giving should go, you be at peace with how they're using it. You can only, it's as best as you can see it with. So for us, it was very much causes that were to do with the homeless or charities of that nature, as well as some kind of spiritual uplift as well.
So the last thing I want to ask you about here as we close things out is, what would you tell yourself at the beginning of this journey of becoming a content creator, growing an audience on YouTube? What are things that you know now that you wish you knew then, that if you had a time machine, you could go back and tell Jennifer a couple years ago, like, this would save you a lot of time and misery if you just did it this?
Do you know what? I think I had some very human experiences where you just want things to go quicker than what they are. I still get that, and that's what I talked about. I get in my own way sometimes, and I think you do as a creator. You think about, oh, well, I've seen somebody else do this, or they've got 10,000 subscribers quicker, and I think the best, and I'm not perfect yet, but I definitely want to say to myself, just be okay. It's going to happen. There's going to be things, there's going to be ways that you'll get to that next milestone, or things will happen out with your control. So it's just being a bit more at peace and enjoying the journey a little bit easier. The other thing I've learned is it's okay to have criticism as well, and that's something I think is very unique to being a YouTuber, is that you will get people being very honest with you very easily. So, but also be okay with the criticism, listen, but take it away either as there's something constructive there that you can learn from, and also don't let it destroy your whole career. Go and believe in what you're actually doing.
Well, Jennifer, it was a pleasure chatting with you. As we close this one out, why don't you let everybody know where they can find you, where they can listen to you, watch you, read you all over the internet?
Oh, fabulous. Well, first of all, you can find me on YouTube if you search for MamaFurFur. I've also got an Instagram account, which is at MamaFurFur, and Twitter as well. If you fancy reading my book, I've got a book called The Master Money Blueprint, and we also have a weekly podcast, my husband and I, talking about prosperity. So money, well-being, health, and it's called The Prosperity Project. So if you look on iTunes or Spotify, you will find our podcast there as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Jennifer.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Thanks again to Jennifer Kempson, aka MamaFurFur, for joining me on this episode of the Videocraft Show presented by Video Husky. If you would like to find her, again, we have all of those links that she mentioned to her YouTube channel, Instagram, elsewhere in the show notes for this particular episode. You can find that at www.videocraftshow.com. Also, if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. Forward it through a text message, send it through an Instagram DM, send it through a TikTok DM. Can you do that? I don't even know if you can do that. Technically, I should know that as a host of a podcast about content creators. You know what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to go on TikTok right now and just check this. Yes, you can. Send a DM. Just share the episode wherever it is that you, or to anybody who you think would find value. That's all I got to say there about that. We also have something for you if you are a content creator. If you struggle to organize your ideas, structure them for your videos, get a copy of our free script template. Using it can help you do all of those things and more. It just makes the video editing process and creation process much more simpler for you and your editor if you have an editor. To download it, just go to videocraftshow.com, or if you're watching here on YouTube, find the link in the description below and just subscribe to our email list. It'll get delivered straight to your inbox right after you sign up. And don't forget also to accept the invitation to join our email list. We have a double opt-in on that. And if you are enjoying the episode, enjoying this show, make sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, wherever it is that you can. God, this is so terrible. So if you're enjoying the show, make sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever it is that you get your podcasts. We're always trying to hear back from you, hear feedback from you. That's just how we can improve the show. Also, subscribe to our channel on YouTube. If you haven't already, hit the notification bell to hear when it is that we have new episodes and content going up. And make sure to hit the like button on this video if you haven't done so already. If you are watching the YouTube version video of this video version of the podcast on YouTube, make sure to hit the like button if you have enjoyed this content. It helps us with the YouTube algorithm and make sure that we get our content in front of more creators just like you. And leave us a comment too. And finally, gotta thank my amazing producer and editor here for creating the show and helping me distribute. And And finally, I want to thank, of course, my producer, Nikki Vicente, and editor, Vinny Luterio, for their hard work on the podcast. Also got to shout out Paulo Lopez for handling graphics. If you would like videos edited to look just like this, then visit videohusky.com to learn more. We'll see you next week on another episode of the Videocraft Show presented by Video Husky.